Today we're diving into a huge shift happening in AI development. And let's be real, if you're still just thinking like a prompt engineer, you are already falling behind. It is time to start thinking like an agent engineer.
I want to start with this quote because it really just cuts right to the chase. The way we build AI agents is changing, like fundamentally. That whole era of just tweaking a prompt over and over for a better result, it's over. And what's taking its place is a genuine engineering discipline.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. The stakes are incredibly high. Gartner is predicting that almost half, 40%, of all these AI agent projects are going to get canceled in the next few years. You know why? Because they're being built on a totally flawed foundation. Sticking with the old way of doing things is, well, it's a direct path to failure.
So how do you avoid becoming a statistic? That's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at exactly why prompting is failing us. Then, we're going to break down the new agent engineering stack. We'll get into context and reliability, and then, at the very end, I'll reveal the one thing that silently kills most of these projects in production.
All right, let's kick things off with a problem every single developer has run into. You build an agent, right? It works perfectly on your laptop. It's amazing. But the second it gets in front of real users with real, messy data, it just completely falls apart. And here's the spoiler. The problem isn't your prompt.
You know, this totally goes against our intuition. We all just assumed that if we give a model more information, a giant context window, we'd get better answers. But the research, it shows the exact opposite. It's a problem that's been called lost in the middle, where the critical information just gets buried in a giant sea of data.
And there's actually a name for this: context rot. It's what happens when you treat that context window like a garbage can. The model's attention gets diluted, its reasoning gets all fuzzy, and performance just tanks. Simply stuffing more and more data into the prompt is literally a recipe for failure.
So this brings us to a really crucial new way of thinking. Your prompt isn't the engine, it's just the user interface for the engine. It's the command you give it, sure, but all the real work, that other 90–95%, is happening in this complex system that's running underneath.
Okay, so if the prompt is just the UI, then what is the system? Well, it's what we're calling the agent engineering stack. Think of it as the actual blueprint for building systems that are robust, that are reliable, and that are truly ready for production.
This whole stack is made up of 7 distinct, totally non-negotiable skills. And this isn't just a list of helpful tips. This is a curriculum. Mastering these 7 areas is what separates a little toy chatbot from a production-grade agent that can deliver actual business value.
First up, system design. Instead of having one massive monolithic prompt that tries to do everything, a proper agent architecture is like a team of specialists. You've got a goal manager that figures out the main objective, a planner that breaks it down into steps, a tool router that picks the right API for the job, and an executor that actually, well, executes the plan. It's a modular hybrid system.
Next is tool and contract design, and this has to be rigorous. You absolutely cannot let the agent just guess how an API works. You need strict, machine-readable definitions for every single tool. This is what stops it from making things up. It's also why adopting standards like the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, is so crucial for making sure that data access is secure and standardized.
Okay, now we're getting to one of the most critical parts of the whole stack: how production agents actually manage information. And let me tell you, this goes way, way beyond just remembering the last few messages in a chat. See, professional agent systems use this really sophisticated 4-layer memory architecture. You have short-term conversation memory for the task at hand. Then there's session memory for the user's bigger goal across multiple tasks. Then you have long-term user memory for their preferences. And finally, organizational memory, which taps into the entire company's knowledge base. And here's an even more advanced technique. A lot of systems just stop at standard vector search, but the really cutting-edge agents are using something called graph-enhanced memory. This lets the agent understand the relationships between different concepts, not just find similar words. For information retrieval, it's a massive leap in accuracy. Anthropic actually offers a really powerful way to think about this. Tools are the things that do stuff. You know, the APIs, the code. Skills, on the other hand, are the intelligence. They're the expert knowledge and the behavioral patterns that guide how and when to use those tools. A great agent engineer architects both of these things. Look, an agent that works 99% of the time just isn't good enough for production. So now we've got to cover the skills that make an agent genuinely robust, engineering it so it can handle failure gracefully and defend itself from attacks.
Because in production, things will go wrong. It's a guarantee.
APIs will time out, models will fail. So reliability engineering means you plan for this stuff from day one. You build in automatic retries, you set strict timeouts so things don't get stuck in a loop, and you create simple deterministic fallbacks for when the complex AI logic just breaks.
And security is just completely non-negotiable, especially when you're dealing with indirect prompt injections from, say, a compromised document. A key technique here is simulate before actuate. Basically, the agent comes up with a plan, but a totally separate system has to validate that plan before any action is taken. And you always need a hard-coded final line of defense that the LLM can't possibly override.
The final skill really ties this all together, and that's constant evaluation. This is not a set-it-and-forget-it kind of system. Production agents need a continuous feedback loop, using human validation for the really critical tasks and having deep observability to trace every single action for debugging and improvement.
Now, here's the crazy part. You could master all 7 of those skills, build a technically perfect agent, and still have your project fail to launch. So let's talk about the final, hidden hurdle that stops the vast majority of enterprise agent projects dead in their tracks.
Just think about it for a second. Your agent is smart, it's reliable, it's secure, it has access to memory and all the right tools. It seems perfect. So what could possibly be missing that's so important it would just derail the entire project?
The answer is authorization. This is, without a doubt, the single biggest gap between a developer's cool demo and a real enterprise-grade product. It's the one issue that nobody talks about in tutorials, but it is an absolute showstopper in the real world.
And here's exactly why this is the silent killer. Your agent doesn't just act for itself. It has to act on behalf of thousands of different users, and every single one of them has unique permissions. So how do you manage the credentials for every one of those users securely? How do you prevent it from leaking one user's private data to another? This is a massive systems challenge that needs deep expertise in enterprise security, like OAuth. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Building an agent that has the intelligence to think and plan is really only half the battle. The real question, the one that decides if your project ever actually sees the light of day, is this.